Well, welcome. I am your host, Cindy Watson, and today we're going to be talking with Scott Rahn about how core values can help you practice with purpose and much, much more. So welcome, Scott. I'm really excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And for those of you out there who may not know Scott, you're in for a treat. He is the founding partner of RMO LLP, a national probate litigation law firm, which may sound boring to some of you, but hold your hat because wait till you hear about some of the ways that they practice. He is also a frequent contributor to news media like the BBC. He's been named to the Chambers and Partners as the 2021 High Net Worth Guide. He's been listed as one of the best lawyers in America. He's been recognized as a top litigator by the Los Angeles Business Journal. He's been recognized as a visionary by the Los Angeles Times. And in fact, we would take up the whole podcast if I tried to list all of the accolades that he's received. So definitely comes with some serious chops. So why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit, Scott, about who you are and what made you want to pursue a career as an attorney?
Sure. It's a great question. To help people, I think that's why most of us get involved in the practice of law, especially from a litigator standpoint, right? You've got somebody who's in distress and needs help. And those are the people, the families that we help in our probate litigation practice. So we're very lucky that over the course of my career, we've been able to really come to concentrate and focus on this niche, which is helping people in a very distressed time in their lives when they've lost someone they love or someone they love is compromised and there's a dispute. There's something chaotic going on around that loved one or their affairs. And we have the opportunity to come in and hold their hands and give them a path and let them know it's going to be okay and get them to that result and put them in a place where they can move on with their lives, which is really what all of these people want.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting when you talk about people coming at a time when they're distraught, and I resonate. I mean, I think back when I lost my dad, he was only 52 and he died unexpectedly of a heart attack, and it threw everybody into a state of chaos. So I imagine there can be a lot of conflict and high emotion in many of the cases that you're dealing with. I love your perspective on, how do you handle that? And what advice do you have for lawyers out there, to our listeners who have to deal with that combination in their practice as well, that sort of potential conflict and high emotion?
Yeah, I think it goes to our primary core value here at RMO, which is lead with empathy, right? We are here to help people, right? That is what the practice of law is about. We are duty bound to do that. But I think people lose sight of the helping people part and become more focused, particularly for litigators, on the zealous advocacy part. And they come to forget that in helping people, we need to remember that they're people first. Yeah. And the cases that we're handling are about people, right? Even if you're dealing with assets and businesses and things like that, ultimately it's the people behind these cases that matter. Yeah. And you lead with empathy and you keep those goggles on and you're looking at your cases in terms of, are we really helping these people? How are we helping them? And what result are we getting for them? We like to say that if you take care of people, everything else takes care of itself. And that's certainly been our experience.
Yeah. And it's such an important reminder, that empathy piece, and easy to forget. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the to-do mindset of lawyering, with our docketing practices every 6 minutes, those 0.1 billable increments. And we start seeing things as files and forget the people behind the files. And for us, even though we do this day in, day out, for most people who approach us, this is their first experience dealing with our system. And it can be so overwhelming. And you had mentioned, Scott, about that, most people enter their career because they want to help people. And I love that. But so many fall off that goal as their career continues, which you're sort of alluding to in that empathy piece. So tell me how you developed your firm around the people that you help and continue with that passion. Because I know that's everything I've read about you and the firm that you've built centers around that sort of people first kind of philosophy.
Yeah, I think I had the good fortune of being raised by good people in a good community filled with good people in rural Wisconsin, agricultural, blue collar factory town, and, hardworking values, but, where you're honest and you treat your neighbors with respect and you treat, frankly, everyone with respect. I think that helps shape, who I am. And I've just come to surround myself with like-minded people. Sean Muntz, my partner, he and I have been together for 21 years. We started as summer associates together before we were even lawyers, shared an office,
Wow.
and better to be lucky than good. Here we are 21 years later, leading this ship and this practice, and fortunate to do that. But in having had the experience of working at the firms that we've both been at and having the opportunity to learn, not only how to do things the right way, you also learn, how not to do things the wrong way. And oftentimes, this profession is, susceptible to human frailties just like any other. And if you're paying attention, if you're mindful, you can see that the things that people do that aren't right ultimately, may help the client in the short term, but in the long term, it all comes out in the wash. And you start to surround yourself, professionally with the people who do things the right way and for the right reasons, right? The why is just as important as the what. So we hire and fire and promote through our core values based on who the people are, whether they're good people who are here to take care of people, they're team players, they're focused on getting client results, and again, putting people in a better place than we found them.
Wow, so much great value there. I want to unpack, and totally resonates with you when you talk about that, where you come from, those blue collar roots and working class, because I think we often undervalue and dismiss the value of that. I grew up in a low rental apartment complex. It was considered the tough side of town, but really it was just mostly all really hardworking, as you say, blue collar, strong, principled people who would give each other a hand and cared about their neighbors, and always made a point of, given the choice between what was easy and what was right, they chose right, 9 times out of 10. So that's a really great reminder as well. And proximity. I just want to put a pin in that for our listeners. I think we often forget that how we show up in the world is often a reflection of who we surround ourselves with. So whether in our personal lives, striving to surround yourself with people who lift you up, who elevate you, who inspire you to be the best version of yourself. And Scott, I love that you've mentioned in your hiring practices, like, be really intentional about having your firm, where you're all surrounding yourselves with people who are going to work together and have that same philosophy. And you've mentioned core values a couple of times, and I'd love you to talk a bit more about and share with our listeners what the core values for your firm are, and maybe unpack them a bit for us one at a time.
Sure. So our firm functions on the EOS model, the entrepreneurial operating system that was made well known by the Traction book. And part of that process and going through that evolution is to sit down and document what your core values are. So for the past many years, my partners and the firm generally have been working off of that platform and around those core values, which allow us to ask questions regarding our business, the cases we take, the vendors we work with, whether they're consistent with those core values. And only by sitting down and as a team, really coming up with what those core values are going to be, and then really honing in and fine tuning what they are and why they are those things, are you able to really understand who you are as a business and how you want to run that business and what the guiding principles are going to be. So for us, our 4 guiding principles are: 1, that we lead with empathy, which we define to be that we're here to take care of people and our communities. Our second core value is be authentic, which we define as do the right thing always, every time, regardless of the consequences.
Nice.
The third is we're stronger together and we are a team. I appreciate the accolades and all the recognitions that we and the firm have received. But the reality is we wouldn't have the practice and we wouldn't be able to help all the people that we're able to help across the country with their probate dispute needs if we didn't have the team of people that we have, right down to the receptionists and the people on the telephones and the paralegals and the office administrators and obviously the lawyers. But, we all work together and it's extremely powerful. You get exponential gains for your clients when you work together. And then finally, zealous efficacy. And it's a play on zealous advocacy, that legal concept that you're going to zealously advocate for your client. We're not just here, and I think this is something that we've seen over the past 20 plus years, where people are zealous advocates, but not necessarily for a gain for their client.
Yeah.
So, we redefine that term to be zealous efficacy, which we define to say, essentially, we're here to get better results for our clients sooner and for less legal spend so that we are in a position to put them in a better place.
Wow, I have not heard that before. And boy, I love that distinction, because I do think for so many lawyers, and again, for our listeners out there, I invite you to think yourself. Sometimes we use the almost as an excuse, this idea about this zealous advocacy for our clients, and we end up losing perspective where we're so focused on the so-called win in this very competitive model that we jump into that everybody loses in the process, right? So what a beautiful combination. Like I'm a big advocate of empathy. I teach what I call the art of feminine negotiation, and it's not gender-based, but it's all about that empathy-based approach. And I think that ties beautifully, Scott, when you talk about being stronger together. I think there's so many layers to that as well. And I love for our listeners out there, I invite you to think about, because stronger together as a firm, absolutely, but stronger together for your clients as well when you approach that we're in this together. And even, and this seems counterintuitive, sadly, I think to many lawyers, I'd be interested in your thoughts, Scott, stronger together, even with the other counsel, when we actually, instead of looking at fighting each other, when we're looking for those better outcomes, the best possible solutions, we actually get better results rather than trying to have power over the other side when we see ourselves as being stronger together. I'd love your insight on that.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. The reality is that we would all rather have an opposing counsel who knows what they're doing, is an expert in their area, and leads with empathy and wants to get zealously efficacious results for their clients, right? Because although clients like to think we're magicians, and sometimes we like to think that we pull rabbits out of hats, the reality is that there are only so many things that lawyers can do, right? We only have so many tools in our toolbox. And if you have someone on the other side who doesn't share these values and isn't there to get their client the best result they can get their client in an efficient and cost-effective way, it's going to be difficult for us on the other side to be able to get those results for our clients, right? Yeah. We'll always do our best to do that. But if you have two lawyers who know what they're doing on opposite sides of the case, it is much easier to work together. Sometimes clients don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
They want you to be aggressive with the other side. But the reality is if we both know what we're doing, the facts are the facts. And if you can't argue bad facts or minimize bad facts, you probably should be in a different profession. Because the reality is the cases, we all know how the cases are likely to turn out. Yeah. Right. And what we do here is we really, we do our diligence early. I think it's one of the things that separates us. We don't sit on our hands. Yeah. We do our diligence early, find out what the good facts are, hit the other side over the head with them, find out what the bad facts are, because every case has bad facts too, right? They might not be significant bad facts, but it's the stuff the other side's going to tell us eventually about our case. And we talk to our clients about those bad facts early, right? Yeah. So that they're not surprised. I think one of the things I saw in my career early on was all too frequently attorneys would receive bad facts in a case and be afraid to talk to their client about it because sometimes they didn't want the case to go away. They wanted to keep the work. Yeah. Or they were just afraid to tell the client, like, look, you did something wrong. Yeah. And, so the client would find out 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later. And over the course of that time, they had run up huge bills. Maybe the client would have made different decisions, right? Maybe they would have settled the case, some other decision. And I'd never want a client to say, why didn't I know this sooner? Yeah. Right. So that's why we really try to drive our cases. And I think we've grown to have a well-earned reputation for getting clients better results sooner for less legal spend for that reason, because we're in a position earlier to help our clients make those well-informed decisions that they're eventually going to have to make. And if it's trying a case, we're trial lawyers and we're not afraid to try a case, but the reality is that most cases settle for a reason. And if everybody's doing their job, everybody should know what the facts are, good, bad, and otherwise, which will allow you to get to a resolution.
Yeah. So good. Better results sooner for less. I love that. That'd be a great motto for everybody. And interesting when you're talking about working with counsel who are more experienced. I'd even take that a step further. Like sometimes when we're dealing with counsel who are not as experienced and don't see the big picture, it can be so and again, it seems counterintuitive, sadly, I think, to so many lawyers when they're coming from that competitive mindset, help the other side to see those better solutions, those better outcomes, because then you get better buy-in, which ultimately causes less friction, less potential litigation down the road and challenges to the process. So important. And really want to invite again our listeners out there to adopt this idea about the core values, whether these are your core values or whatever. Because have you found, Scott, I'd love your perspective on this. I often do an exercise with people where I say, pick 3 words that reflect how you want to show up, whether in any given meeting, in any given litigation, and any given relationship. And when you're really intentional about whatever those values are, how you want to show up, it allows you to ground yourself when things go sideways or when you end up in really tough situations, when the going gets tough. And let's face it, in litigation, that happens. So what's your experience about having these core values, and how does that allow you to show up or ground yourself more consistently?
It allows us to make consistent decisions because we run those decisions, whether they're hiring decisions, promoting decisions, firing decisions, whether it's an employee or a client, vendor relationships, cases we're going to take, clients we're going to take on. You run all of those analyses through the same filters and you get more consistent results, which gives your team more consistency. They know what to expect, right? It gets your clients better results because you're working on a consistent band of work. And I just find that it gives everybody, frankly, a more of a sense of calm.
Yeah.
Because of that consistency. So, we always like to say that RMO is a safe place, right? And we specifically talk about that with our team, when we're out recruiting, talking to candidates, and they always ask, what do you mean by that, right? And I always tell them, being a lawyer can be a scary thing, right? And a lot of us have experienced, table pounders and screamers, and whether it's opposing counsel or someone you work with in your own firm or a client or a vendor or things like that. And what we say is, we don't tolerate that. One, we don't treat people that way. So we have a very firm no jerk rule. I know a lot of firms say they have it, but they don't enforce it, especially if somebody with a big book comes walking in the door. But it's very important to us in our culture. So we enforce that. But what it also means is that we walk the talk. So one of the anecdotes that I like to share when we talk about this specifically deals with a young woman associate at our firm who was working with an older gentleman who, for cultural reasons, called her honey and sweetie and things like that, which he didn't find problematic. And frankly, she didn't find problematic either, but it was brought through a senior level attorney. It was brought to my attention. And I said, let's get him on the phone right away. And we had a conversation and basically said, look, I know you don't mean anything, any malice by this, but this is not the way we treat our people. And it's not the way we allow other people to treat our people. And either it stops now, or you can find yourself a new law firm. And to his credit, he stopped. He was embarrassed, and the words were never spoken again. And he treated her with respect for the rest of the case. But we then went to her and basically explained what we had done and why we had done it. And she said, it wasn't a big deal to me. And I said, but it's a big deal to us. Because we tell people this is a safe place and we treat people with respect. And we wouldn't be walking the talk if we let him talk to you the way that he talked to you. So you make those decisions through those core values, you see things through those lenses, and it makes those decisions easy because you're being consistent about your messaging.
Well, Well, and kudos to you. It's going to say it's gutsy. It shouldn't be gutsy, but let's face it, it is a gutsy thing to do because for most lawyers, most law firms would be afraid of losing that high profile client, right? And they would let things slide. And again, to our listeners, an invitation, take a look in your practices. Are there things maybe that you're letting slide that you could take another look at? And I love when you talk about that consistency piece, how within the firm, it creates that sense of calm. And again, I think the ripple effect of that, not only does that consistency allow you to have that sort of consistent show up with your associates, with your partners, within all the way trickling to the, from every end of the spectrum. But also, I suspect, Scott, with opposing counsel, that consistency has got to serve you well. They know that you show up with integrity. They know what they can expect. They know not to try and pull some fast ones or whatever it's going to. And even with the, whether it's the judges, your reputation, that kind of consistency breeds a reputation that I suspect serves your firm well. Has that been your experience? Or
Absolutely. It serves the firm, it serves our team, but it serves our clients. One of the big issues in these cases, as you highlighted at the beginning, having your own experience from your dad's untimely passing, and my dad passed at 60, again, far too young from heart failure. And these people that we work with, they are emotional, right? They've lost someone they love is compromised, and temperatures can be pretty high when we come into these cases. And one of the things we're able to do because of that consistency, because of the reputation that we enjoy, is most of the time we're able to have an early conversation with opposing counsel. Speaking of working together,
yeah,
they know us and they know we're straight shooters. They know we do what we say, and we can call and we can bring those temperatures down, right? So talking about getting better results sooner for less legal spend, one of the easiest ways to reduce legal spend is to work things out instead of running to court every time. So when we know the lawyers on the other side and they know us, most of the time we're able to at least sit down, agree on the things we can agree on, disagree on the things that we need to disagree on, but you've limited the universe of now what needs to be fought over.
Yeah.
So if you're limiting 9 out of 10 issues and you're fighting over one, your spend is going to be significantly less. That time frame is going to be significantly less. And what that leads to, and sound like a parrot now, parroting myself, your client gets better results sooner for less legal spend. So it's really, it all works together.
I love that. So beautiful. And I'd be interested in your perspective. How do you define success? I mean, one of the things that prompted me to start the practicing with purpose is, I feel like our entire legal profession is so built on this competitive model where it's all about that win. And we define success based on, money. You've got to work at the big firm or the downtown firm. You've got to get these results. I'd be interested in your perspective, either personally or your firm's philosophy on how you define success.
Yeah. If we weren't in the middle of an office move right now, you would see the whiteboard that sits behind me, and at the top of it, it says, how can we make others more successful? And that's really how we define success. So are we making the people we work with more successful, right? Are we helping them do a better job in less time for less money for our clients? Are we helping our clients get those better results sooner for less legal spend, right? Are we giving our vendors, meaningful work? Right? Are we getting meaningful referrals? Are we helping our referral sources, the attorneys that we work with, the CPAs we work with, the other financial professionals we work with? Are we making them look good in front of their clients? Right? And that's really the accolades that you mentioned, the LA Times, the Visionary Awards, those things, they're reflective, frankly, just of the community that we're a part of and all the things that we're able to do together.
Yeah. And I'd love, Scott, if you could share with us, what's one thing you attribute your success to?
I think a big part of it is removing ego from the equation. We often say that we take a lot of pride in what we do, but there isn't a lot of ego in it, right? So if you remove the ego, it allows you to focus better on what your client's goals are, what's best for the firm, right? As opposed to what's best for me. Right? It allows you to make better decisions when you're handling your cases. It makes better decisions when you're out in your communities. And having, matured into those understandings over the, many years, and frankly, just looking back and relying on my upbringing. My dad was a mechanic when I was a kid. He had his own shop. It wasn't very successful, and he shut it down probably when I was around 10 or 12 years old. But I remember him helping people, fixing their cars so they could get their kids to school and they could get to work, even though they couldn't pay them or they'd pay them later, and that sense of community and removing your ego and saying, look, this is the right thing to do. Right. It will come back to me. And they always ended up paying eventually. Right. But, that modeling, frankly, going to my dad, my mom, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, family, my neighbors, community, and realizing that not only are we all stronger together, but we all are intertwined here, and life is short, and you can either, treat people well and be treated well, or you can make other decisions. And, this people mean too much to us to make those other decisions.
You're pulling at my heartstrings here. It's like you're channeling my father. I mean, it's funny when you talk about your dad and the mechanic. My dad worked in a factory as a paper worker. And I remember for a long period, he was a color maker within the factory. And he brought such pride to that job, like that, just getting that perfect sort of color. And he always taught us from a young age, everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Whatever position you hold, show up with pride, show up with 150%, show up with integrity, and treat other people that way. And I must say, Scott, you're speaking my language about like everything. I teach the art of negotiation, and at its core, so much of it talks about empathy and ego. And you've really touched on both of those. So I suspect our philosophies are very aligned. I'd love if you could take a moment to speak to, the art of negotiation, whatever that means for you, and how that helps you both as an attorney and in life.
I think that your acronym is perfect, RFIT. It's really about listening, right? It's about not only listening to your client, which is eminently important, but listening to the other side and developing an understanding of what's really important, right? What's important to your clients, which you think should be important, sometimes isn't, right? It isn't about the tchotchke, or maybe not about the house, or not about the jewelry, right? It's about the feelings that they have around those things. And I think if you're present and engaged, and if you're meaningful about your preparation for those things, I think you're always going to have a leg up on your opposition, because you're going to be prepared and you're going to have your client prepared to make decisions. And that, just speaking on the preparation element for a moment, I mentioned earlier how we do our diligence early and we educate our clients early. And we do that because far too often what we've seen in mediations particularly is you have a situation where the judge comes in and says, I think the client's on board, but I'm going to need more time to educate the lawyer, right? The lawyer doesn't know the case. So really the client doesn't know the case, right? So we never want to be in that situation, right? Like our clients, to a person will sit in a mediation and look at us, and the judge will say something and they'll look and they'll say, that's exactly what Scott told us, right? That's exactly what RMO told us, right? We were there, or the judge will walk out and they'll say, that's exactly what she told us. And so, we love, obviously we're lawyers, we're paranoid as a species. We love being prepared, perhaps over prepared, but we love having our clients prepared, because then when the decision points come, they're ready, right? They don't then have to process the emotion behind, do I want the house, right? Can I give up, mom's wedding ring? Those things, they're ready to make those decisions. And that's on the professional side. On the personal side, leading with empathy in any negotiation, whether it's with any of my kids, with my family members, my fiance, it's just, if you come at it from a place of empathy and understanding, you're going to understand their actual position, because I think far too often in any negotiation, there's so much noise, right? Either because you're failing to understand, or the other side's failing to communicate clearly because they're not coming from that same place. So if you've got your listening and your empathy and your understanding hat on, you're going to be able to dissect what the other side is actually asking for, as opposed to guessing and figuring it out and going back and forth, right? Instead of I want to tell you, I think almost without fail in our mediations, we end up being told by the mediators, you guys are good, right?
Nice.
You know what's going on, you know what the ups and downs, the pluses, the minuses, right? I'm going to go spend some time with the other side. And in life, it's the same, right? You need to have a grasp of, what's going on and be honest with yourself, right? And that's part of the early diligence with the clients, is so they can be honest with themselves, right? And sometimes it takes a really long time to get them in that place, right? Sometimes not. And we'll tell clients, because sometimes, clients are fighting with their brother or sister, step parent, et cetera, for a while, and they want to understand why. And the reality is that death affects everyone differently, right? And you may have processed, the loss more quickly, right? More naturally, but maybe your brother or sister didn't, right? Maybe they're having a really hard time with it. And I had that same experience in my own family when we lost my grandmother, who's the matriarch, of our family, and had the family farm that I grew up baling hay and milking cows on. And, one of my aunts had a really hard time letting go. It wasn't really expected, but everybody came to me because this is my business and said, what do we do? And I said, give her some time, right? Some time and let her process it. And we did. And at the end, everybody was able to agree. Nobody was, fighting, and everybody's lived happily ever after. But sometimes people just need time. These are human issues more than their legal issues often.
And we tell ourselves stories, right? I mean, and the thing that I want to really put a pin in again for our listeners to pay attention to there, you'll notice when Scott is talking about preparation, which I agree is such an important part of any negotiation and or litigation, whatever you want to call it. But if you've noticed when Scott's talking, a lot of their preparation process deals with what I would call the mindset, or that inner work as part of it as well. And, you mentioned my acronyms. One of the other prep models that I just swear by is I call it the no fear model, like just both for ourselves as counsel and for our clients, going through that fear, ego, attachment, and reactivity, FEAR. What fears is the other party going to be bringing, and how can we minimize those in advance? Let's think about it as part of our prep. What fears are we going to bring to the table, right? Let's own them. Let's recognize them. How does ego show up for the other party, for us? Attachment, you mentioned about that attachment issue, right? What are the things that we're too attached to, and how can we maybe minimize that? Same with the other side. Our reactivity, what are going to be the triggers for that other side? Doing that as part of our prep process, it just pays off huge dividends at the end of the day. Now, obviously, you carry such passion for the practice still. And as you know, with, practicing with purpose, that is one of my huge goals and desires, is that, on a mission to help lawyers rekindle their passion. So share with us, how do you maintain your passion for the practice, and how do you inspire others to do the same?
I have the most wonderful team of people who inspire me every day, and the connectivity that we have as a team, right? When you feel that you're really part of something, you can't help but be inspired. I have a wonderful team of partners. We have a wonderful team of attorneys. We have a wonderful team of paralegals, administrative staff, who are all rowing in the same direction, right? And when you look at what we've been able to do over the last 8 years since we launched the firm, coming out of Big Law, and where we're headed in terms of all the people that we're going to be able to help by continuing our expansion and growth into some of the other markets we've identified as having a need, it drives us. It's easy to get out of bed in the morning knowing that what we're doing every day is helping people, and it's going to allow us to help even more people. So beautiful. Find something you're passionate about. I sit on the board of the Alzheimer's Association here in Southern California. My grandmother, who I mentioned, was my favorite person on the planet, and she suffered from Alzheimer's dementia at the end of her life. And those experiences, and being able to help people, and if you can't help them during their life, then help their families after. Again, having a human approach to life, and having that connectivity internally at our firm, externally in our communities, it's easy to get out of bed in the morning and get ready for work.
So beautiful. And again, so resonated. We're dealing with dementia with my mom right now. And my gosh, it is gut-wrenching. It is such an emotional roller coaster every day going there, and she's living like 30 years ago. So I love that empathetic approach that you bring to the table. And Scott, what's one thing that you know now that maybe you wish you knew when you first started the practice of law?
Gosh, that's a great question. There are probably so many things that you shouldn't be afraid to be yourself. I think so many young lawyers, and perhaps even senior lawyers, think they need to be, a table pounder or aggressive, right? A pit bull, a shark, right? I mean, the number of,
Yeah.
attorney ads out there that mention the word aggressive, you could easily choke on it. And
Yeah.
the reality is that is not one, that's not a mature approach, right? It's not an effective approach. When clients call and say, we want someone aggressive, we want a pit bull, we want a shark, are you aggressive? And I say, no. And they don't know what to say. And I say, are you looking for someone aggressive? And they'll say, yeah, I want someone aggressive. My brother, my sister did this, and they're stealing this, and blah, 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 blah. And we need somebody aggressive. And I said, okay, so you want it to take twice as long and cost twice as much. Right? And they said, no, I don't want that. And I said, I know. I said, what you want is for your brother or sister to be stopped from doing whatever bad acts they're doing, and protect the estate and be in a position to move on with your life and your family, right? And they're like, yeah, that's what I want. I know. Right. So that's, I think as a young lawyer, you get caught up in that zealous advocacy, right? Thinking like, I need to win every battle, and you don't. You need to be strategic, right? You need to be efficacious.
Yeah. So beautiful. And I think people often conflate assertive with aggressive. You can be very assertive in your positions, not yielding ground. It doesn't mean we have to be aggressive. And when you talk about that ego and feeling we need to show up a particular way, and again, maybe I'm dating myself and I hope it's changed, but I found law school encourage that. Like there was such a feed of that ego in terms of how you show up as a lawyer and what it means to be a lawyer. And our identity as a lawyer was very much wrapped up in very old school kind of approaches. And I think we embrace that as our ego. So Scott, I can't believe how quick our time is going here today. I'm loving your insights, and I want to be respectful of your time here. And I normally like to end by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? And this doesn't have to be about law, just one of those aha moments that changed how you show up in the world.
I think one of the biggest is contentment versus pursuit of happiness.
Oh,
right. Yeah. Do you have enough to be content versus chasing things? And a lot of that came out of mindfulness practice. But I think we, especially as lawyers, we're taught to go hard charge, be aggressive, be zealous about so many things that often we don't stop to realize that 90% of whatever we're doing, or 80% of what we're doing, is 30% more than most people would ever strive for. And can you be content with that 80%, that 90%, 70%, versus chasing an ideal or chasing perfection?
So beautiful. I love that. And again, so not spoken about enough. So thank you for sharing that concept of enough. I remember years ago, I'd written a little kid's book, and as you're saying, it's probably sitting in a drawer somewhere. I don't know that I did anything with it, but teaching the concept of enough versus, like, in North American society in particular, we're saying everything is too much, right? We use too much, more than we could ever possibly need. So learning that concept of enough is such a recipe for a contented life. I think that's a beautiful lesson. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being here. I have loved your insights. I kudos to you for the way that you show up and practice the law and everything you're doing to move that mission forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And for our listeners out there, make sure to check out Scott and his firm as well. You can check out their website at rmolawyers.com. Obviously, if you know anybody who's looking for that kind of litigation, make sure to refer them. You want to be rewarding people who are showing up from a place of integrity and doing a great service to the profession to bring us back in where we get the respect that used to be something that we sought after. Check them out on LinkedIn as well. And we'll make sure to put all of that in our show notes as well. So you can make sure to reach out and check out Scott Rahn and his team at RMO. And I have no doubt that you got loads of value from this episode. Make sure to go back. I'm going to go back and listen and take some notes here. I think there have been some great gems and really some great subtle tips on how to shift how you practice. So make sure to share this episode and subscribe to the podcast, obviously, if you haven't done that already, and share it with anyone who you think could get some value. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, I invite you to go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose. Find a better way to practice law so that you can rekindle your passion. Go back out there and make a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time, take care.